He totally unloaded that gun, so he's dead. He or she is purified by a last sacrifice, another moment of death and rebirth, but on a higher and more complete level. By the hero's action, the polarities that were in conflict at the beginning are finally resolved. Well, the polarity was this. Is he going to believe and accept? Is he the one or is he not? That's the polarity. Are you the one or are you not? Are you going to fully believe it? Or are you fully going to not believe it? It's finally resolved in the moment where he is resurrected. So that is stage 11 of the hero's journey. And then finally, stage 12 of the hero's journey is return with the elixir. The hero returns home or continues the journey, bearing some element of the treasure that has the power to transform the world as the hero has been transformed. Boy, doesn't that sound like the Matrix? So at this point, the movie's over. That final scene is basically ends with it's Neo in the Matrix. He comes out of the phone booth. He's basically talking to the software. He's talking to the Matrix. He's talking to the agents, and he's basically giving them a warning. But the elixir, it's called Return with the Elixir. The elixir that he has is the truth. He has truth and knowledge, and now his truth and knowledge, he knows what the Matrix is. He knows what his purpose is. He knows that he's the one. So that's the element of treasure that he bears, and the power to transform the world as the hero has been transformed. So basically, he has been woken up, and now he has the power to begin waking up others within the Matrix. So boy, oh boy, does that movie not perfectly follow the 12 steps of the hero's journey? And the answer is, of course, because I just said so. Okay, so now the fun part is we're going to start breaking down the movie. We've talked about the greater metaphor and the meaning of the movie being control. We've talked about it's really what the story is, the allegory of the cave, and Socrates' adventures, really, after kind of being guided by the Oracle at Delphi. We've talked about the structure of the movie as it relates to the hero's journey, but now we're going to go through the movie. And as we do from the beginning, what I said was I'm going through the movie as it relates specifically to the overall metaphor of control. And so what is control in the movie? So in the movie, The Matrix, the control is the machine world. The machines are in control of humans. They're basically using the humans for power, and their method of control is the digital matrix. It is an illusionary reality that keeps their minds imprisoned from birth. Okay? So now what the movie is, this metaphor of control in our lives, what it's saying is that similarly, the writers, the producers, the writers of the movie would say that we similarly live in a world of control. That we are prisoners to a controlled state. The elites, but also, and the method of control in the movie is the Matrix software that presents an illusionary reality. In our world, that similar illusionary reality would be how in our cultures and societies we are constantly fed with movies, entertainment, games, the obsession with actors and actresses and media and music and everything that basically paints our reality of what it is to be human and also tells us who we are. So we don't even really know what it means to be human except for what we're told it means. Simple things like you buy a car, and that the type of car you buy is supposed to tell you what kind of person you are. Am I a friendly economic or environmental person and I'm buying a hybrid, or am I a macho guy and I'm buying a four-wheel drive pickup truck? That's a small example, but it's essentially what it's getting at. But we're also living in this controlled state, and the illusion, the distraction, is the reality around us. That's the metaphor and how it compares to our lives. But what's interesting, we'll get as we go through the movie. After we go through the movie, the final part here, what I'm going to talk about is the Matrix Possible. it gets crazier than that with the actual scientific theories of is the Matrix possible. But at its surface, again, I don't want to go deep down the rabbit hole, and I said I wouldn't do that. So at the surface, that's what the movie's about. So let's go through this, the movie, and so we'll point out instances that directly reflect that, as well as other symbolism, philosophical ideas that are worth mentioning. And I said I wouldn't mention everything; it would be impossible. But we're going to mention the things that are worth mentioning, as well as some other interesting Easter eggs that are just worth bringing up. So, the opening scene begins at the heart of the City Hotel. So, when the movie opens up, the first location is Heart of the City Hotel, and the use of the word "heart" is interesting there because the first main character we see is Trinity, but the first people we see on screen, and this is important, the movie opens up, the first people on screen are police officers, symbol for control, okay? The first major character we see is Trinity. We see Trinity in Heart of the Hotel, and that is kind of the role that Trinity takes on as we begin to understand the movie, as we go through things. The character of Trinity, basically the symbolism there is the heart, really of humanity, and we'll kind of get into that more later. But another interesting to kind of point out is she's in room 303. 3, of course, being the number for Trinity. I saw an interesting thing, and I forget how it breaks down. You can take 303 and do like a 3 plus year, whatever. It's a prime number, and there's some weird stuff there. But again, I think you can get too crazy. I would prefer to keep it simple. Trinity is in room 303. The next scene, after all this plays out, we are taken to Thomas Anderson's apartment, and this is where we meet Thomas Anderson. The one thing, and I knew there was so much research to do for this movie or for this podcast, and I made sure to get through everything I want to talk about except one thing. So now when I get to this point, and I'll have to put it on the website. So if you go to realityfred.com and check out the pages it's on, I'm going to have all of everything. All the videos, the links, everything that we talked about so that you can learn so much more. But the other thing I forgot to look into, there is meaning. Thomas Anderson, the name Thomas and the name Anderson both have kind of religious and historical context. So even the name Thomas Anderson has some meaning to it, but I forget what that is, so we'll bypass it, but I'll put it on the website. But I'm not shy in saying that I forgot to point out that one thing, but it's worth noting, so we'll put it on the website because it is interesting. But here's the thing. So the first time we see Neo, and I'm even told that the all three movies open up with these same interesting notes. Apparently, all three movies start with Trinity in trouble, which is interesting. And if Trinity kind of represents like the heart, the fate of mankind, it's basically saying that the whole Matrix and everything, until everything's resolved, mankind is always in distress and in trouble. So even when Neo becomes the one at the end of the first movie, as we go further into the fact that there's going to be a second and third movie and the story isn't over, even with him being one, the fate of mankind is still in trouble. So that's kind of interesting that all three movies opened up with Trinity being in trouble. And then we always see Neo asleep. So the first movie, when we first meet Neo, he's asleep in his apartment. On his computer, we see kind of like while he's asleep, the computer's doing like a background search. It's searching for Morpheus. So he's searching for Morpheus. And the interesting thing that his apartment number is 101. So the simple symbolism there is 1. He's the 1. On the screen, of course, we see the computer tell us, "Wake up, Neo, the Matrix has you." So the first time the Matrix is we see the use of the word Matrix in the movie, we're hearing the words what we see on the screen, "Wake up, and the Matrix has you." So they're telling Neo to wake up, but at the same time, wake up because everybody's asleep. In the movie, they're asleep in these pods. Metaphorically, everybody's asleep to the truth and knowledge that we're in a control state. And the Matrix has you again. The Matrix has you. Matrix representing control. You're being controlled. Now, also, the room 101 not only is it because Neo's the one? But apparently in the novel 1984, it's a reference to the novel 1984. Apparently there's a room 101, which represents the place where your deepest fears are contained. So room 101. So Neo eventually wakes up. There's someone at the door. It's basically these guys coming to buy some hacking software or whatever, but they're basically coming to buy something illegal off Neo. He goes inside. They give him the money. He goes inside to get what they want, and he keeps the software disks hidden in a hollowed-out book. And the book that he grabs off his shelf where this software is hidden, the title of the book is Simulacra. I don't know how to pronounce that. Simulacra. I think it's Simulacra. Simulacra and Simulation. And even when he opens the book up, the page he turns to is nihilism. And nihilism basically is, in its simplest terms, from all my expert study of watching The Big Lebowski, is apparently the belief in nothing, that nothing is real. So he just so happens to keep everything in a book called Simulacra and Simulation, and specifically when he opens it up, the page that's featured is a page on nihilism. Now, there's actually a neat website called matrix.wikia.com. And according to matrix.wikia.com, this book, Simulacra and Simulation, discusses how we have replaced reality and meaning with symbols and signs. That what we know as reality is actually a simulation of reality, where we believe our reality is what is portrayed to us via media, commercials, etc. Dun, dun, dun. Again, it's all about that big metaphor that we're in a control state. And what's interesting, apparently when they were making the movie, the producers made everybody involved with the movie, like everybody, like the actors, the writers, the directors, everybody involved in the movie apparently was supposed to had to read this book, Simulacra and Simulation, so that they got really understood what they were showing up to work and doing every day and what this movie was all about. Another little symbolism thing here, when Neo... Thomas Anderson gives the guy the software. The guy's excited and he says, "Alleluia, you're my savior, man, my own personal Jesus Christ." So he's saying that to Neo, which is another little foreshadowing of all the Christian symbolism that's in the movie. And you know what? Something else that I just thought of, and I could be wrong about this. I'd have to go back and look at it. I haven't seen anybody else on the internet actually point this out. But in the scene where he's basically saying you're my own personal Christ, I think when the guy gives Neo money, the amount of money that he gives him is $2,000, and the movie came out in 1999, so it's roughly 2,000 years from the birth of Christ. So I don't know if there's any symbolism there, and I think it was $2,000. If it is, perhaps that had some meaning. If not, then I totally just made this all up. And then Neo even says to the guy, they say, "What's wrong with you?" And Neo says to the guy, you ever have that feeling where you're not sure if you're awake or still dreaming?" So we start bringing in the whole idea of Neo questioning. He's asking questions. You ever have that? So again, this is kind of comparing him to Socrates, asking questions, trying to learn what's real. So that takes us to the next scene where Neo meets Trinity at the club, and really the just a quick conversation when Trinity leans into Neo's ear and whispers, "You're looking for him. I know, because I was once looking for the same thing, and when he found me, he told me I wasn't really looking for him, I was looking for an answer. It's the question that drives us, Neo. It's the question that brought you here. You know the question just as I did." And Neo says, "What is the Matrix?" Trinity's, "The answer is out there, Neo. It's looking for you, and it will find you if you want it to." Just like Socrates, Neo is searching for truth. And again, the first movie, once we do part 2 and we break down what is the questions of the second and third movie, the question of the first movie is, what is the Matrix? And that's why at the very beginning I said the most important thing to understand here is, what is the Matrix? What is the Matrix? It's a metaphor for control. So even in the movie, each movie presents a new question, and the question actually keeps getting bigger. But the question for the first movie is, what is the Matrix? And even though this seems like everything, the question in the second movie actually gets even more profound and deeper. The question in the third movie is more reflection of, once you answer the question of the second movie, what do you do with that information? But again, that's as much as I'm going to tease that, because it'll keep the part 2 of the podcast more exciting. So the next scene